Hi, everybody. Andrew Champagne alongside JD Fox for this week's edition of Champagne and JD. You may notice a little bit of a different layout. We're really excited about this week's episode. We'll be taking a look at the late pick four at Keeneland in just a bit. But first, we've got two of our favorite people from the industry, and in my case, and probably JD's as well, just favorite people in general, joining us for a discussion on what I feel is a front runner for yet another Media Eclipse Award for the Nevills Voss household. Guys, I'm just throwing this out there. You're going to need more shelves, I think. Joe Nevills and Natalie Voss from the Paulick Report joining us to talk about their story involving the deputy and some of the issues that they discovered, that they talked about. Both of you were very excited to have you on the show this week. Thanks for making the time.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Now, just to be clear, they are in the same house, but they're in different parts. I think that's because Joe thought Natalie was going to throw things at him at some point. But kidding aside, this is a very serious issue, and this is something that I think they did a tremendous job highlighting, not just the fact that the deputy was in a bad situation, but the step-by-step process to where a Santa Anita Derby winner and Kentucky Derby runner could get into that kind of a situation. So, Natalie, I'll start with you. Just give a little bit of background on what went into the story and the way that you found out that this was happening.
Yeah, so I have done some coverage before of bail pins or kill pins, as they're commonly known these days. And, thoroughbreds sometimes show up in those situations. And because I've covered, a couple of stories on it, and that turned into a few more. And so now if a horse of, any sort of repute or group of horses end up in that situation, I tend to get a message about it. So I got a message about this particular horse, really in the middle of the night on one day. And then the next morning, the pin had changed the Facebook post to say he's no longer available. And I was talking to people saying, oh, great. Okay. Who bought him? And nobody could figure out who bought him or where he was for a little while. So that sort of created a little bit of, questions about what happened here. How did he get here? And he turned out to be, I would say, a fairly classic case of how horses find their way into bail pen situations.
Yeah, and really, we're talking about the deputy who not only was a Kentucky Derby participant, was well-backed that day, was actually the second choice in what was the final race of the deputy's career. And the deputy kind of took a path and obviously was a stallion in a lot of different areas, starting as just a traditional thoroughbred stallion, then working away as a quarter horse cross, and then for barrel horses in the quarter horse realm, that sort of thing. Kind of been an interesting last couple of years where you really had to trace back the steps of where this horse was and kind of how the horse got into this situation.
And that's something that ended up being a big issue on social media, was people trying to figure out sort of who's to blame for this. And it was very easy to, just it went all over the place. So to retrace the steps a little bit for the deputy, he started at stud at Margot Farm in Kentucky, stood there for 4 years, didn't really knock the world out for any reason. Went to Hubble Farms in Michigan for a while, for several years, became a useful stakes stallion there, but the direction of Michigan racing is what it is, not great. So they sold him to a farm in Iowa, which stood him as a thoroughbred stallion for a few years. But he really wasn't getting the job done in terms of attracting mares. So that farm sold him to a quarter horse owner who was mostly breeding him for their own barrel horses. Wasn't really that easy to find, didn't really advertise him. And then that farm took him to the livestock auction in southern Iowa, where he eventually was purchased by the bail pen buyer. So that's a lot of steps. And it's a lot of steps that aren't that easy to trace. There were a lot of people that were very quick to blame the Iowa Thoroughbred Farm, Rockin' River Ranch, and that was not the one that sent him to the auction. But they're the last farm of record in terms of people writing stories about where he went for the trade publications. He was probably the last one listed in the Blood Horse Stallion directory. And people sort of latched onto that because that's where they last knew he was. So I called the owner of the farm, and he said, yeah, he hadn't stood here for 5-6 years. I sold him, but he kept getting Facebook message after Facebook message, why'd you do it? Why'd you get rid of this horse when it wasn't him? And in fairness, the lady who did own him was very hard to find. It was very hard to Google. She didn't have any sort of real web presence. It wasn't easy to find the woman who owned the deputy before he sold at auction, but there was just a lot of different people trying to point blame in a lot of places that didn't deserve it. There were people blaming the Michigan farm that hadn't stood him for, nearly a decade. I saw some people screenshotting the Equibase page that had Team Valor and Gary Barber as the last listed owners. And, they haven't had papers on that horse since, 2001 or so? But just that there's just not that education of who actually had the horse at the time. So everybody just sort of made wild guesses and pointed their rage at it.
Yeah, and obviously we talked about the horse and Santa Anita Derby winner, but was a very successful stallion and still has horses running. So Tin Badge ran last night at Sam Houston, $336,000 in career earnings, multiple Iowa bred stakes winner, still in action, still doing well, and was foaled in 2015. And we've got foals doing thoroughbred racing all the way through until about a year and a half ago, from what we can tell, that the last, or I should say 2 years ago, the last record of a foul from the deputy. So in the thoroughbred race anyway. So it's very interesting to see the progression and how quickly this can turn, because I think what we saw here was reputable farms, and then somebody and maybe somebody passed is what it seems like. Somebody that was actually breeding the horse passed, and wife maybe not able to take care of the business, and that may have been what led to this.
It's a little bit of that. So I think it was a husband-wife duo. I think the wife was honestly more into the horses than the husband was, just from my conversation with her. But once he died, she just kind of decided, I don't really need this life anymore, and sort of backed off on things. She sold a few different horses from a breeding operation. She was clearly just trying to get out of the game as quickly and easily as possible. So I don't know. It's hard to get inside the mind of someone like that. Yeah. And I got the impression she seemed surprised that the horse is going to a kill pen. She got the information from the buyer that he was going to a rescue, going to a place where he'd be perfectly safe, a retirement facility. And that very much wasn't the case.
No, not at all whatsoever. And it seems like every couple of years there's a story about some horse that we've heard of. The most obvious one from about 10 years ago, of course, was Ferdinand. And to their credit, there have been reforms since then to try to ensure that stuff doesn't happen. But Natalie, the question that I think a lot of people were asking after this story broke is just how many horses like that aren't nearly as successful as the deputy was find themselves in this sort of situation where they're passed off from one owner to another. There's a long chain. A lot of the people in the chain don't necessarily have nefarious intentions, but all it takes is one link in order for everything to go south.
Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, we don't have a good sense for how many horses, how many thoroughbreds end up in bail pen situations, or how many actually end up going to slaughter. But what I will tell you is that in recent years, bail pens have gotten much more aware of the financial value to them of getting a horse that has a name or getting a group of horses. They seem to have found that groups of thoroughbreds, especially if there's an estate sale situation and they can get, 10 or 12 or 15 at a time. We've seen that, blow up on social media every few months or so. There's this big group of horses. We have to pay to get them out of here. We only have 48 hours, go kind of thing. They know that now. They know that there's a lot more concern about this issue than there used to be. They know how much more money they can make than what they could off of a fairly anonymous thoroughbred, or a thoroughbred that was older, or a thoroughbred that might have some, obvious and profound health problems. They're literally truly seeking out horses that they think they can extort money from people more easily, whether that's based on their previous race records or just the fact that they're a thoroughbred. Like Joe had mentioned, seeing people screenshot the Equibase record on the Deputy. I see people who do that every time there is a thoroughbred in a bail pen, no matter how old that horse is. They do not screenshot the race results page to show how long that horse has not been with those connections, and they don't care. And most people who see that don't care. They think racehorse, they think derby, they think NBC TV, they think big money. How could this horse get there? I'm furious about the situation. What can I do? Oh, I can give money. Great, where do I give money? And these bail pens are relying on that. They're absolutely relying on it. And unfortunately, the fact that they have blown up the way that they have, that there's been this attention towards active fundraising campaigns has only made it easier for them to do that.
Yeah. Before we go much further, and this needs to be said, kudos to Barry Irwin. Barry Irwin stepped up. He did a really great thing. We have a history. He doesn't want to hear this coming from me of all people, but Barry, kudos. In case you're watching, thank you for doing the right thing. He actually mentioned this at the tail end of the article. I'm not going to mention the term that he used, but he mentioned that the noise on social media that gets amplified whenever a horse is in a bad situation, in a lot of instances from people who mean very well, have good hearts, and want to help, it winds up working against the people who have the ability to make a difference here. So this is a question for both of you, is what can people do in order to help in situations like these that won't wind up benefiting the people that are using nefarious means to try to make a buck? It's a really tricky situation, and I wish there was an easy one-size-fits-all situation, but it's becoming fast clear there isn't.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, I get asked a lot, like, what can we do about the problem? And personally, my really pessimistic outlook on it is that it's gotten so big at this point. Like, it's its own economy with its own driving factors for these bail pens, because they don't just work with thoroughbreds. They obviously are driven by other breeds and other, breeds that have fan bases, or pedigrees that have fan bases and other breeds as well. And so they've got their own kind of currents that drive everything that they do that's well beyond anything that we can control as far as the bail pen problem generally. But I think that it's more about what people can stop doing, stop giving them air when they're in the process of trying to raise bail for a horse. If you're sharing that post, you're commenting on that post, you're liking that post, you're helping them. And I know that you're helping the bail pen, I mean. And I know that there's people who are aware that that's how that works, and yet they get stuck on, as horse lovers, I'm looking at the horse that's in the situation now, and I can't help but want to help that horse, even though I know I'm going to contribute to the overall system. Yeah, but they're also relying on you thinking about it that way. They're relying on people not understanding the system, or people thinking, yeah, okay, I get that I'm not helping the overall problem, but I just want to help the one horse. They're relying on both those categories of people to do this. So I haven't, unfortunately, come up with a super great suggestion for what to actively do, other than, if you want to move a horse on into retirement, try to vet out the person that you're selling the horse to. If you're selling privately, work with a reputable, accredited nonprofit group. If you're taking a horse off the track and trying to send it someplace. But frankly, people that are horses that end up straight off the track or soon off the track into this pipeline, it's because somebody wanted money for them, more so than they wanted to donate them to a nonprofit. So I'm not sure how helpful a suggestion that one is, but I guess my main suggestion is, stop helping them fundraise, because they're just going to take that money and take it to the nearest livestock sale and buy more horses with it. So you're not helping the overall pipeline when you do that.
The only thing I guess I would say, sorry, Joe, is, show up at your local sales. Eyes and ears, kind of see what's going on. You see something that looks fishy, it probably is. And you've got some people locally that can maybe do something before that horse even loads up on a trailer. Yeah,
and there are livestock sales near you. There is one near just about all of us, whether or not we know it. And that's where these guys are operating. They're not tending. They do some private sales, I think, probably directly with trainers, but for the most part, they're going to public livestock auctions where they're running cattle, horses, pigs, not like Phasig or Keeneland kind of auctions, but these weekly kinds of local livestock auctions. And that's where they're getting horses from. So, I mean, you can go there too. Some of them are doing, from what I understand, some of those auctions are now a little more kind of web friendly than they were before COVID. So you can kind of also keep an eye on what's going on in your area, even if you don't feel safe going there, because some of them are now doing online sort of stuff. So that's also a way to intervene on your own. Of course, I will say that there are now bail pen operators who, of course, go to those sales to buy horses, and they're bidding everybody up because now they have to pay more because horses are going for more money just in general. But that's its own sort of separate rant.
And it's difficult to tackle from sort of a moral standpoint, because objectively it's the right thing to save a horse that's in trouble, whether it's a famous horse like the Deputy or if it's a cheap claimer in Louisiana. But if you look at just at the numbers and cents, how these things are affected, the Deputy sold at the Iowa auction, the Iowa horse auction, for $425. And Barry Irwin bought him for, what's $3,000?
So the horse was first sold to somebody for $1,500, and then his post blew up on social media. And then she was told, "Never mind, you can't have him. I'm going to refund the money." And then Barry paid $3,000 for him.
Mm-hmm. So either way, like, this kill pen buyer got thousands of dollars off of, this is a really good transaction for him, and he's going to turn that around and make that into even more money. So it's just, I understand the difficulty. Like, it infuriated me to see him in there too. And there was definitely the thought of, oh, how do I help, like a Maggie Moss or someone raise the money for this? But it's just, I know, you know where that money's going, and it's not good. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. The other thing I was just going to say when you were mentioning the prices is that was an interesting aspect of the story to me, because so often, what the bail pen is advertising the horse's bail as, but you don't know what they spent on the horse. This was one of the rare cases where we knew, this guy bought the horse at $425, which is kind of within the range of like a logical kill price. So like the way, just to explain this for your audience, like the way that this usually works is like the slaughterhouses will pay by the pound for horses, just like they do for cattle. And they're setting their prices kind of on a weekly fluctuating basis, but you have a general idea of what the range is of what the slaughterhouses are paying. So if a horse is going for above that at a livestock auction, probably the person who buys him is not going to turn around and send him to the border because he's going to lose money. And what's been interesting about these bail pens is that they've been able to drive their prices up so much in recent years. I think they're also probably paying more for the horse in the first place, that you have to sort of question, are you actually saving this horse from going to slaughter? Because if they paid $750 for the horse and they can maybe get that, but probably less than that at the border, they're not shipping him. They're going to turn around and charge $1,500 or $2,000 for the horse to the public and say, oh, you better save him from slaughter. He's going to die soon. Well, was he really going to? Because don't they have so much money in him and can make so much more money off of him, marketing him to the public versus shipping him? You have to sort of question, at what point has the system been fed so well that the horse isn't really at serious risk anymore because they're relying on that profit margin?
It's a multiplication issue.
And that's all I can say. I'm sorry to interrupt, but it's a bizarre game of poker that people who genuinely care about horses are being forced to play. And there's no easy way to look at it, no matter what situation you're in. Whether you're a horse lover that wants to save horses, whether you're somebody that wants to put these kill and bail pens out of business, it's just a bad scene all the way around. And it keeps hitting me. And it's a quote from The West Wing that I believe Toby Ziegler said, "There's no way about this that doesn't stink." And it's incredibly unfortunate that we even have to be in this situation. I want to have both of you on the show as much as I can. I love both of you. You're both some of my favorite people. It stinks that we have to spend our time together talking about a situation like this where there's no easy solution other than raising awareness of some of the practices that are going on. And in that article that you two wrote, you two did that as effectively as I've ever seen anybody do it. So kudos to you for that.
Appreciate that. One more thing that I want to bring up. I saw a lot of people in comments and replies before and after the story dropped of, why didn't the quarter horse owner contact the local TAA affiliate? Or why didn't they contact someone who could put this horse, in a safe retirement home? And I wonder how deep the penetration of education is to, get to reach someone like that, a older widow who probably doesn't read the Paulick Report. those options might not have been available in her headspace. That's not to excuse anything, but I think part of the reason the horse ended up in the position that he did is because she might not have well been aware of any better option. I'm sure part of it is, cultural in that particular part of the country, or just in that particular mindset of, when you don't need a horse anymore, you put them through the auction. That's just kind of what you do. I don't think the TAA, handouts are necessarily hitting, Afton, Iowa, the way that they would be hitting a farm in, Kentucky, or, even closer to that.
Well, and, sort of going off of that too, I was going to say that I appreciate you guys having us on to talk about this, because like a lot of the way that people learn about how bail pens work is from the bail pens. They're getting really good at talking to people who they know have no familiarity with the issue. This is how we do things. This is the way the purchase process and shipping process works. They might opine to you some about why they're in this business, or what they do, what they don't do, what their practices are. And that's it. There's nobody else really talking to people about and asking them to sort of question, is what you're being told actually legitimate? Where did this horse come from? What did they pay for the horse? What are you going to do with the horse? There's not a lot of sort of, outside party to kind of try to get people who are, the target audience for these guys to really think about what they're being told, and to try to give them a little bit more objective sense for it. So I appreciate getting any kind of air to talk about it, because I don't see anyone else doing that. And as many people as contribute money to these guys or buy horses from these guys, like, that education is so needed.
And to piggyback off of that a little bit, it's amazing how many of the bail pens will formally put themselves as a rescue, as a we're giving these horses a second chance before they go over the border. Like, they will, in all appearances, look like an actual aftercare organization, or something where we are actually helping the horses here, when it's clearly, if you have to hold a gun to the horse's head to say we're helping them, you're not helping them. And that's basically what they're doing here. But
and they're relying on people not checking. Yeah. And not even thinking to check. They're relying on people just going like, oh my God, what do I do? Where do I send the money? And not thinking about it any farther. And I think that's probably what happens in a lot of cases.
Yeah, you got to do your homework. That's the most important thing here, is just, if you're going to help a cause, if you're going to if you're going to, contribute something, vet the people out. Vet them out well, make sure they're accredited, make sure they're certified, and just don't deal with bad people.
Well, and try to get somebody else's take on the information too. The thing that always kind of kills me about like the bail pens is they'll set a bail price on the horse, and they'll say, this is what it's going to take to get him out of here. And then, a few hours or days later, it'll be like, well, guys, we need $800 more before this horse is bailed. And I'm thinking, we have no idea how much money you've raised already. You could have raised double the bail and no one would know. And so when you say, oh, it takes $1,500 to get this horse out. Oh, we're down to only 800 left. Did you get 2,000? Did you get 2,500? When you asked for another 800, did you get another 1,000? I have no way to know. Nobody has any way to know. Only they know what they're actually raising, what they're doing with that money. They are also the only ones who know much about the horse's condition, because a lot of these people are buying and taking horses completely sight unseen. They're looking at pictures and video, but they are not, facilities that are open to the public where somebody could go in and have their vet look at the horse, where they could look at the horse or touch the horse. They're paying money to somebody someplace. They're believing what they're told, and then they're taking what comes off the trailer. And that's kind of crazy to me. Like, that's not how you buy horses, or rescue horses either. But that's how this normally goes. So, if you can't sort of third party verify the information you're being given, then that should be a red flag.
And, these people aren't dumb. The kill pen buyers aren't dumb. They know how to manipulate people. They know how to manipulate social media in particular, and get the attention they need. They're very good at this.
They're very smart. I have to hand it to them.
That's the sick thing to me is they are smart. They know that, hey, if this horse gets a laceration in shipping or something that's going to be more dramatic for the story, they're going to make sure that picture gets to the person that's going to post it on social media. And that's the craziest part to me and the really sycophant part of this is that happens. And when that happens, that's a positive to these bail pens.
All good for business.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just There's a lot going on. There's a lot of layers to this situation. Thankfully, the deputy has found his way out of that, is in a better situation. Barry Irwin, if you happen to be watching, thank you for what you did. To those of you that did stuff to be able to get that to his attention, understanding that even though you might have, upped the price a little bit, if it got somebody's attention that could do something, yeah, that's the problem. It's that kind of double-edged sword. And we haven't figured out a way around that yet, but hopefully at some point soon, something will wind up coming through that'll ultimately help horses, help the game, help everybody involved. For the time being, though, Joe Nevills and Natalie Voss did a tremendous article. It's up on the Paulick Report. We touched on a lot of the in-depth situations about it, but there are a lot of fascinating quotes and insights within that article. If you haven't seen it yet, it is well worth your time. Joe Nevills, Natalie Voss have combined to win 4 Media Eclipse Awards. I have a question. If you get one trophy for this, are you each getting a separate one? Do you have to share one? I'm very curious as to how that would work. And I mean, would there be like a joint custody agreement with the trophy whose name would be on it first? This would be fascinating to be able to watch.
I mean, I don't honestly think it'll be an issue, but I think that Joe knows the ins and outs of like what happens when multiple people win an award more than I do, frankly.
So I have an answer for this because I do know the answer, and I'm not saying it for this story. Like Natalie said, I don't think this is your winner. I really don't.
No.
And I don't also want to be the person touting, okay, so here's what's going to happen when we win our Eclipse Award, because that's not good.
Not happening.
That's not happening. No. But I can tell you what happens when multiple people win an Eclipse Award, because this happened back at Thoroughbred Times. Tom Law and Greg Charkoudian won one together for the multimedia for their It's My Job series. It was excellent. They gave them one trophy, and they asked, can both of us have a trophy? And they said, yeah, but it's going to cost you thousands of dollars. So they just decided to have one trophy.
You don't have that in your couch cushions, Joe?
I'd have to do some really serious digging. Andrew, we have horses. We don't have couch cushion money. We have 2 horses. Okay.
It's fitting that you mention that, because I can't let Natalie leave. And we cannot start our analysis of Keeneland without me asking about Blueberry, the artist formerly known as _. Natalie, how's it?
He is doing very well. I think he is probably getting a little bit bored because we can't do but so much with him at the layup farm where he's at now. We've been waiting for a stall in my trainer's facility where we have access to an arena and we can actually begin riding him. But until we have arena access, he's just been doing like basically walking. He's been doing lots of, hand walks. It's like the very slow part of like the Rocky montage. Like you just walk up the hill. He doesn't have stairs. He can't do stairs because he's a horse. You just walk up the hill over and over and over again. Every time he thinks like, oh God, I can't make it. This, enormous horse is just like, leave me here. It's too much for me. And you can do it. You can do it. He walks up the hill, but like, that's really all he can do right now. And he gallops in to be fed. So that's like really the only time we get to see him actually move. So I think he's kind of ready to do a little bit more, but hopefully in a few more days, maybe a couple more weeks, he'll actually be able to start real work. And then he'll probably kind of regret telling me that he was bored, because it'll be like, no, never mind. This is too hard.
Now, Joe, I have a question for you.
Yes.
We're not going to air this hidden footage, but I have seen it. Has he gotten better at the circle thing?
I haven't asked him to.
Yeah, we didn't try that again. So I had some questions one day about whether Blueberry was a little bit tender after he had his feet trimmed, because he's a little bit tender-footed, as thoroughbreds sometimes can be, and he doesn't have shoes right now.
I'm just watching his face. This is great.
So I was trying to he jogs in hand very well, because like before they would train every day, like a lot of racehorses, they jog them up and back for the vet or for the trainer to make sure they're okay. And I was like, yeah, well, he looks fine on the straightaway, but could you take him in a circle at the jog, just like lead him sort of jogging on a turn so I could see better, how he might lean on one foot or the other, just to make sure, because I think he's okay, but could you just jog in a circle around me? And, like the horse doesn't quite have a concept of jogging in hand in a circle, because of course he won't have done that before. So he's in this big open area and I'm standing in the middle, and they make it like kind of about 2/3 of the way around the circle before there is no fence line to guide the horse anymore. And so he just kind of keeps going. Joe's just sort of like trying really hard to just keep up with the thoroughbred, who's really stretching out quite nicely and looking very sound. And I'm just standing there, oh, he looks really sound. I wonder if they can stop. So there's video of that somewhere, which we will not air, don't worry.
I'm not going to throw him under the bus that much, mainly because I know if I do, there will be retribution and it will not be pretty for me.
Yes, it will, and no, it won't.
All right, Natalie, we'll let you go. Thank you so much for spending some time with us talking about this article that you and Joe worked on. Anything fun, exciting, interesting coming up that you're working on that you want to maybe pump up right now?
Nothing super fun, I'm afraid. A lot of my job is really dark stuff, so I have some interesting stuff. But
you gotta help me.
I will say Blueberry will probably have another. I'm doing a training column monthly about Blueberry, and now that we're in a new month, I'll probably have one of those coming out in the next couple weeks. So you can look forward to that. That should be hopefully happy sunshine, unless of course he bucks me off on my head. But we'll just hope that doesn't happen.
Yes,
it should be lovely.
We're all hopeful that, Blueberry doesn't cause any bodily harm to anybody. Though from what we have seen, he is a very, very cute horse that will hopefully accomplish great things. Natalie Voss, thank you so much for stopping by. We really appreciate it. And again, fantastic job on that article. And we appreciate you giving us a little bit more insight into some of the things that went down that a lot of people may or may not have seen. Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate your having me on.
All right, we'll be back with the Bluegrass late pick 4 at Keeneland right after this.
Thanks very much to Natalie Voss for joining us for the first part of our show this week. Joe has been kind enough to stick around and handicap the late pick 4 at Keeneland with us this Saturday. It's Keeneland's opening week. They open on Friday. Saturday, the biggest day of the spring meet. The all-stakes late pick 4 with 3 grade 1 races and a grade 2 that may as well be a grade 1, given that it has attracted some of the top turf sprinters in the country. Joe, you're a Kentuckian. Keeneland's pretty much right down the road from you. How exciting is it to have Keeneland back, potentially with some fans, and this time not the Breeders' Cup with no fans that somehow still had 10,000 people there?
Yeah, well, it's exciting just to have a spring meet in the spring. Last year it got pushed back to the summer because of COVID and everything happening. So it feels good to have these races when they're meant to be. Just like always, it's going to be unseasonably cold for Bluegrass Stakes weekend. I've got a couple of joke nicknames I've got for Bluegrass Stakes weekend. It's either the White Grass Stakes because it's often snowing, or my cold Kentucky home. Either one works. Feel free to use either one of them, but I'll probably be wearing a jacket either way.
You know what? I'm not going to touch anything related to my old Kentucky home after the April Fool's Day prank that swept horse racing Twitter. Sham I am not with another one that got him reported to the Twitter higher-ups for that one. So that's now 2 years in a row. Needed to, of course, bring that up because we are filming on April Fool's night. So loads of fun for that. Anyway, in happier news, race number 8 at Keeneland is the grade 2 SHAKERTOWN older turf sprinters, and we've got a really big field signed on. We, in fact, have a field of 13 horses that are set to go postward for this one. It's a great betting race, too. The morning line favorite is 3-1. I think that's going to be pretty accurate. JD, am I going first here? What order do you want us to go in for this?
Well, yeah, we're going to go to the second page of graphics so I can show you that, the favorite outside Bound for Nowhere, the 3-1 shot that you mentioned. Andrew, we'll go ahead and start with you here, as I think all of us see this as a pretty wide open event.
We do, but all of us are using remarkably similar horses. It's weird, and this is not something that's going to happen often in all 3 of our late pick 4 tickets. I went 4 deep in here, and my thinking is this is a race that certainly looks as though it's going to collapse and set up for a closer. The most likely closer on paper is number 2, Imprimis, the 7-2 morning line second choice. I think Imprimis may well go favored. I think the 3-1, 7-2 odds are about right in that instance. If there's hesitation there, though, it's that this is a horse that ran a couple of big races last summer going into the Breeders' Cup Turf Sprint here at Keeneland. ran horribly that day. Horrible trip, horrible racing luck. Came back, won a minor stakes at Gulfstream, but was a beaten second in the Turf Dash at Tampa. That was going 5 furlongs. This is going 5.5. I'm using him, but I don't think he's one you can simply single as the main closer in a race full of speed. Going down the page, I was really hesitant to use number 7, Kenthaka, and if the race wasn't so heavy on early speed, I wouldn't have. This is a horse that has not crossed the wire first in almost 3 years. That is not a typo, folks. May 12th, 2018, the Las Barrera at Santa Anita. That's this horse's last win. Having said that, this is a horse that runs well fresh, came off a very long layoff to run second in the Grade 1 Jaipur at Belmont last summer. JD, who won that race?
Alexandra.
One of your favorite horses in training. I set you up for that one. I think if nothing else, he's going to be heard from late. I'll also use number 9, Just Might, because I don't think he necessarily needs the lead in order to run well. I think he could potentially be sitting just off the pace at a bit of a price. Comes in off the big win last time out at Fairgrounds and off the turf race. That day's runner-up, Extravagant Kid, all he did next time out was win a stakes race in Dubai for a whole lot of money. So just might be in career best form. See what I did there? And finally, I'll also use the horse for course. That's number 13, Bound for Nowhere. This is a horse that did everything but win this race last year, did win this race back in 2018, was second in this race in 2019. A lot of early speed, but another that doesn't necessarily need the lead. I think he could potentially use that outside draw to his advantage and be sitting in that first flight just off the pace on the outside in the clear beneath Joel Rosario. So for me, 4 deep in here, 2, 7, 9, and 13.
And don't everybody adjust your eyeballs. You will see the exact same 4 horses for one Joe Nevills.
Yeah, that's how we do it. We have the exact same ticket here, but for a little bit of different reasons. Mostly, I'm going to look at the outside horse, number 13 here. World of Trouble. I really don't like him that much. I don't like outside posts in one-turn turf sprint races. But I respect Bound for Nowhere so much, I cannot leave him off my ticket. This is the kind of horse that's good enough to overcome the outside post. So he goes on. Honestly, if he drew the 9-hole or inside, I might single the horse even. But the fact that he's outside opens up so much more for me. I actually like Kenthaka a little bit more than you. You mentioned he's good at coming in off the layoff. He's, the kind of horse that's honestly due to pop for one. He never really runs a terrible race. He has been working well into this race. I respect him. I respect Jimmy Creed as a sire of sprinters. I think there's plenty here to like.
As Andrew goes to get a hanger.
He's due.
Listen, I've ridden so many Jazzle horses because they were due. And when they pay off very, very well.
Or they run second with no excuse. And I'm using Kenthaka, but I'm just saying, he's due.
He's due to win on the turf, which he's never done either.
I mean, he's run perfectly respectable on the turf. I think he's very comfortable, and also he's got Javier Castellano for what I believe is the first time. Javi doesn't come to Keeneland to lose races.
No,
and I think there's value in that. I think that's a good pickup. Grand Motion doesn't come to Keeneland to lose races. He loves Keeneland. He's had a lot of success here historically. I think there's enough connections here, and I think there's enough horse there to at least give it attention. I don't know if he's necessarily a top win candidate, but he is a win candidate.
My thought exactly, all kidding aside. I hear you. Yeah. It's just, I heard he's due, and then I had to go straight into the Carrot Top box of props.
I'm glad that you have a box just off screen that you can just pull whatever you need from.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You don't want to know what's in there. It's in any possible situation, I've got a problem.
So you guys are going 4 deep. I'm actually going 5 deep. I am not using Kenthaka. I am adding 2 horses, the 5 turned aside, and the 12, the Critical Way, who is third choice on the morning line and on neither of your guys' tickets. I am going to touch a bit on Just Might, the 9, who you guys both share with me, that I actually have as my top choice here. And I've got a crazy with the cheese whiz angle. Last time this horse ran off the turf was back at the Fairgrounds, January 23rd of last year, and won by 7 3/4. Just this past race, won by 5 against Extravagant Kid. Next race, ran a career best figure going back on the turf at 20-1 to win the Colonel Power at Fairgrounds. So I'm hoping for a similar thing where the dirt and a big multi-length win wakes the horse up, and this horse can get brave on the front end. There is a lot of speed signed on here. I will be caution you guys there, but I do think Just Might is the speed of the speed. We'll see if Just Might can take it the full 5.5 furlongs. I do give the Critical Way a big shot here, just because I think the Critical Way is going to be the first horse in the kind of that second wave of horses, and I think we'll have a good shot to pounce late. Obviously, more of a 5 furlong specialist. I think 5.5 will mean that the horse will just sit slightly further off, save a little, make a little bit of a later run, but there's also a chance that the Critical Way is just going to go out blazing up front and have a chance that way as well. I couldn't leave the Critical Way out the ticket just because of the ability and the interest there in the stretch out to 5.5, which has resulted previously in, there was a head loss at Monmouth, and going back a little ways, a 2.5 length win at Keeneland I should say 3 years ago, kind of the last time at 5.5 that you can look on the form and see something. But the Critical Way at age 7, I think a contender here. Turned aside, the other horse I'm adding to the ticket, obviously just lost to the Critical Way down at Tampa, but has run well recently. Actually just made the change from the Linda Rice barn to the Marcassi barn. Second start in the Cassie barn for Turned Aside. 4-year-old colt here going against the older horses. Turned Aside 6-1 on the morning line. I'm included. So 5 deep there for my kickoff lay. 2, 5, 9, 12, and 13. Andrew.
Yeah, so we're all spreading in here. We all think that this is a wide open betting race, but we share some common ground. This is a good thing. Don't get used to it, because we're moving on to race number 9, which is the Grade 1 Ashland for 3-year-old fillies going 1 1/16. Big Kentucky Oaks prep in here, and we've got a field of 6 runners. Now, we're all wrestling fans. You guys know what I'd like to have right now?
What would you like to have?
I would like for all you fat, out of shape, Keeneland sweat hogs to keep the noise down while I tell you why I love number 3, Simply Ravishing. And if you out there got that reference, you're watching the right show. Simply Ravishing won the Grade 1 Alcibiades last year and did so very impressively. Won by 6 1/4 lengths at this very rep of ground. She was probably taken a bit further back than she wants to be in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile Fillies. She was still beaten 2 lengths. That was a credible effort. I'm willing to throw out the goldenrod to an extent. That was a funky track, and that day's first and second place finishers, they're both really good horses. Those 2 horses are both going to take a lot of money on the first Friday in May. Simply Ravishing has not run since then, but has been working very well at Gulfstream for trainer Ken McPeak. I really like that March 6th work in particular. She went 4 furlongs in 46-2. Ken McPeak does not work his horses very quickly. That's flying. I think Simply Ravishing is sitting on a big, big race, and you're telling me I'm going to get 5-2 as the second choice? Okay, I'll gladly take that. I'm singling Simply Ravishing, and I hope that this acts as a rude awakening for my co-host. That's called foreshadowing, kids.
Yeah, so I'm going to jump you here, Joe, and I'm singling as well, but I'm singling the hunch play for my podcast partner. I can't give product placement here of the drink that I have here, or I would do that, Andrew. But Past the Champagne, the 2 is going to be my single here. Obviously, just coming off the maiden score at Gulfstream Park on February 27th. I had Johnny V up that day, 4-5 favorite, 1 going 7 furlongs. Started to leak away late, 1 by 2.5. Think the horse honestly could have won by a little bit more. Some concern over the 2 turns versus obviously has run to 1-term route of grounds at Gulfstream Park. But I do think the breeding is there for it. I think the Weaver barn generally, once the horse gets going, it's hard to get him stopped in that barn. So I do think there's a big shot here. The other horse that, even though I'm singling, I'm going to mention here, which I believe is allowed, is Curlin's Catch. I just really, at this point, with how whole Bodemeister ran, I'm just willing to like X out the Devona Dale and pretend it didn't happen, because I still have no idea what happened in that race. It seems like an oddball race. It seems like something that's not really going to mean a whole lot in a couple months, or even maybe next month. So I'm willing to toss it out. It was a weird trip. Horse kind of got squeezed inside, kind of gave up ground late. I do think Curlin's Catch here is maybe an interesting play at 8-1. This is probably Curlin's Catch last start in the States before training, might be on the trail for the Triple Tiara, go back up to Woodbine. So, yes, Andrew.
JD, are you trying to say that you like a Woodbine-based horse? Let me show you my big shocked face.
Not enough to include on my ticket. I'm just letting everyone know that I think at this point, I'm willing to throw the Devona Dale out. It did not happen.
I'm getting the low-hanging fruit here. See, I'm picking it off the tree. Low-hanging fruit. Low-hanging fruit. I understand why you like Past the Champagne, and I was impressed with the effort last time out. My concern with that horse was the top side certainly has a lot of distance pedigree. I thought the bottom side was a little bit sprint heavy, and I just want to see her go 2 turns because I'm not necessarily sure this is what she wants to do. Having said that, one big reminder, the 1.16 configuration at Keeneland, a very short stretch. If a horse can get 1.16 anywhere, they'll get 1.16 at Keeneland. So I hear you for sure, and I think you'll get that 4-1 morning line price too. So I certainly can't knock the value. However, the guy named Champagne is not using the horse named Past the Champagne. So take that for whatever it's worth. Joe, your thoughts?
I like both your horses. I have them both on my ticket. I have both the 2 Past the Champagne, the 3 Simply Ravishing, and I've also thrown on the 6 Will's Secret. I'm going to talk about Will's Secret first because that's the one that hasn't already gotten covered yet. Had the very hot hand during the Oaks preps at Oaklawn Park. I really respect Oaklawn as a producer of talent, both on the colt side and the filly side when it comes to 3-year-old races. Anytime they go elsewhere, it seems like they do really well. John Court keeps them out here, and Dallas Stewart loves winning races at big prices. You cannot ignore him. When you ignore him, he will destroy you. So you have to pay attention to him. And, Will's Secret is the kind of horse that has already won big races and even a couple at a decent price. This entire race, there's 6 horses in the field. I went up and down each and every one of them, and all of them would make at least some sense as your winner. There wasn't really, maybe Moon Swag is kind of a long shot, but, she's hit the board in graded stakes races. There's not an absolute no-hoper in this field. Any of them would make sense going into the winner's circle, but I've got 3 in particular I like that are on my ticket. I want to go back to number 2, Past the Champagne, who I think is a very good candidate to move up and make that 2-turn adjustment after running 7 furlongs in her first 2 starts. And I'm going to tell you why. Andrew mentioned that he didn't like the sprint-heavy side on the mare side. However, the Damn Champagne Taste is a daughter of Distorted Humor. Distorted Humor is the sire of such great classic distance runners as Funny Side, Drosselmeyer, I believe. I'm going off the top of my head here. I'm pretty sure I'm right here. Distorted Humor is the broodmare sire of Arrogate, who certainly knew how to get himself around 2 turns. It can be done. And that stamina on the top with Flatter, we know Flatter can get you a good 2-turn horse. I think there's plenty enough there. The class is there. I think this horse is absolutely a candidate to be able to get 2 turns, especially with the help of having a shorter stretch.
Yeah.
And also I like Simply Ravishing too. She's very good. She'll be fine. Go Keeneland.
No, Distorted Humor is certainly a stamina influence. And just to clarify before we move on, I was referring to the 2nd and 3rd dams who are both sprint heavy. That's not to say you can throw a sprinter and Distorted Humor and not get a route horse. You certainly can. I was going to the second and third dam on the female side on the tail end, and those were pretty sprint heavy horses that wound up throwing a lot of sprinters. The second dam, I believe, was stakes placed going a mile on turf against some fairly weak opposition, but it wouldn't necessarily shock me if Past the Champagne was to go 2 turns effectively. I just need to see it first, and if I see it, I'll believe it. It's just the way the horse ran last time out. I'm not entirely sure what she beat. We'll see. But again, it's not like that horse is going to be the 9-5 favorite. That distinction goes to a horse we haven't really thought about. That's Malathat, who we're all going against. And I love that. And I really hope Malathat goes favored, because that means if she loses, we move on and we knock out a lot of tickets, hopefully being halfway home in the sequence. I'm just hoping for like a 2-3 dead heat or something, so we're all alive. See, I am not selfish. I want it known, at least not in this instance.
Good man. And, you mentioned Malathat. I was off Malathat for basically the same reason I'm on Will's Secret. I don't really think that highly of Aqueduct as a producer of outside talent when it comes to going out into the world and going, succeeding beyond the spring meet at Aqueduct. And I want to see Malathat do it against bigger competition than she's already seen.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat, and I can't back her at the likely price. So
correct.
We'll let her beat me, and we'll see what happens. If she does, well, there's a late double for that. And that late double starts in race number 10, the Grade 1 Madison. Older fillies and mares going 7 furlongs. We've got a field of 7. A lot of these horses coming in off of layoffs after running in races like the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint, races like the Miss Preakness last year. It's an interesting race. Number 5, Kamari, 5-2 on the morning line. The second choice, I think she might go favored over number 4, Bell's the One, but I saw fit to go 4 deep in here. My top selection, look, morning line makers have it very tough. It's not an easy gig. I don't think Monday Call is going to be 8-1. I think she's coming down, and I think she's coming down because she sure looks like the only sure speed horse in this race. I think Monday Call is going to go like a bat out of hell early. We saw this horse go 7 furlongs in the Audubon Oaks, where she had a 100 buyer speed figure and went 22-1 to the quarter, 45 to the half. Then in the 8 bells, she went a little too quick, 22-44 at Churchill Downs. If Monday Call goes out beneath an aggressive gate rider in Florent Giroux and is able to put the hammer down early, I think she'll have things all her own way turning for home. She's been working very well at Fairgrounds, but she's been off since October. It's not like I could single a horse like that, even though she is my top pick if I had to give a tepid top selection. 4 deep for me. 3, 4, 5, and 6. Bell's the One just doesn't seem to run a bad race. I just think she maybe needs a little bit of pace in front of her, but perhaps somebody goes with Monday Call. Maybe Estilo Talentoso shows a little bit of early speed and at least test that one early. Corey Lannery just seems to know how to get these deep closers to the wire through really ridiculous trips and holes that seem to open at the appropriate times. Number 5, Kamari. Very interesting. I think Kamari's better on turf, but she's shown she can run on dirt. In fact, her first career start was a 15-length win here at Keeneland. This horse, I think, is just a flat runner, and it wouldn't shock me at all if Wesley Ward has her ready to go for another try at Royal Ascot next year. She was second in the Group 1 Commonwealth Cup last summer, earning a 111 time form rating. This horse may well just be a runner regardless of surface. Need to have her on the ticket. Also need to use number 6, Sconson, a horse that longtime viewers may remember. I liked a fair bit in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. It shows she made a big middle move that day, wound up finishing 4th, but was only beaten for 2nd by a half length. I think she's got some talent, and I think she's a big-time candidate to improve from age 3 to age 4. 3, 4, 5, and 6 for me in the Madison. I don't think there's going to be an overwhelming favorite here. I do think this is a race where you can go 4 deep, and maybe the 4th choice is 9-2, but I think if a 4th choice comes in, or even a 3rd choice comes in, they play bigger than those mutuals in wagers like the pick 4, the pick 5, the late pick 3, the late double, what have you. I think this is a race where if you can spread, you should.
And you're going to see a similar approach here. Myself and Joe here, Bell's the One and Sconson going to be on both of our tickets. I'm going to say in terms of the pace, I think the McCarthy runner on the inside, Saninas, I don't know how we're pronouncing that today, coming off the first North American victory in the La Cañada. was dominant in that race, and that was a super fast paced, and that horse held on past horses and won by 6. I think that's the fastest race, even though I was at a mile and a 16th, that we've seen of any of the runners on recent form. So I do think Monday Call will have some challenges up front. I think that does set up for Bell's the One or Sconson. I was big backer of Sconson in the 8 Bells last year and was handsomely rewarded for the 7-1 going rate. I don't think we're going to see that.
On Wisconsin. It's a fun horse to root for, right?
Well, in my household, it certainly is, having a wife from Wisconsin. But
there you go.
And Bell's the One. I'm a little hesitant off the layoff. But like you said, Lannery will find a way. The rail will somehow be involved. The horse will be right there at the finish.
You're going to have to excuse me. My cat has broken into my studio, and I'm going to need to stop him from destroying things. Joe, go ahead.
Okay, well, we're going to be doing some distracting then. So I went the same with JD here. I like the 4, Bell's the One, and the 6, Sconson. I respect the hell out of Bell's the One. I think she's a good horse. I think she runs hard. She's good at sneaking up and getting... Oh, hello, Elliot.
Elliot says hello, everyone.
She very rarely runs a bad race. Assuming that Gamine is a freak, and she basically ran second by a nose in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. If we just sort of ignore Gamine entirely, because she's just a completely different animal. She's a very in terms of the other horses here, I think she's the class of the field. I honestly thought about singling Bell's the One. That's how much I respect her. I stuck with Sconson, though. Another one who ran very strongly in the Breeders' Cup Filly and Mare Sprint. Coming off some really good works in the fairgrounds. It seems like Greg Foley has this one ready to go. I want to mention Kamari for a moment, because this is one that I was scared of and thought about putting on my ticket, but ultimately I kept off because she's never run at 7 furlongs. I'm never a big fan of sprinters who usually run at 5 and 6 furlongs, stretching it out to that extra one, because I always wonder why we haven't already tried to go that little extra. What else do you have in the tank? I'm willing to be proven wrong on this, but I needed to remove some horses from my ticket somewhere, and I want to see Kamari do it. I'm willing to be beaten by Kamari.
Here's the obligatory mention that 7 furlongs can be a specialist distance. Okay, I got that out of the way. And we're going to head to look at the field for the main event, which is going to be the Grade 2 Bluegrass, going a mile and an eighth on the dirt at Keeneland, the big Kentucky Derby prep, 100 points on the line, 9-horse field. And obviously, looking at the odds, Essential Quality, the 3-5 favorite, definitely looks like the horse to beat. And second choice is going to be the 3 Highly Motivated, who I like a lot here. And taking a look at my ticket, you're going to see that I don't have Essential Quality on it. Again, this is a $25 play. We're going 5 by 1 by 2 by 5. And in this situation, I feel like if Essential Quality wins, this ticket is not going to pay a whole lot. And I'm not going to put a $5 play out there to win $9. So I am going to take a chance here and just go with it's never a good thing to say, but sometimes we can talk about it. Essential Quality doesn't need to win this race. Essential Quality does not need to win this race to get in the Derby. Essential Quality is going to be in the Derby. So maybe they want to teach a little bit here. Maybe Saez really wants to focus on the start, because maybe the key in the Kentucky Derby is getting Essential Quality out of the gate quickly. And Luis Saez is obviously one of the best gate horses, gate jockeys, I should say. He's not a horse, he's a man. One of the best gate jockeys around. So maybe that's just the trick here, and going fast, and maybe Highly Motivated joins or not. I've got a couple crazy horses I want to mention, and I really like the 2 Untreated. If you look at that maiden victory at Tampa Bay, I thought it was very, very impressive. And obviously Luis Saez was aboard that day as well. But 1 for fun, 8 3/4. It was just easy as can be, passing that field. Don't know if there was a lot there, but breaking the maiden, going a mile for Pletcher here with Joel Rosario taking them out. I think Untreated is a must use underneath in all of your exotics, and I think a good enough horse to potentially upset this field. Out of Nyquist, a lot of good breeding there. Obviously, one of the challenges, and we haven't touched on in the other races, this is a LASIK off situation here. So if these horses haven't been in stakes company before, you're likely to see that LASIK's off sign. So that's always a question mark in terms of, is this horse really a bleeder, and are we going to see it come through? So with that said, I'm going 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, and the super crazy horse, which I know Joe likes a little bit, is Hush of a Storm, coming off of the win at Turfway, 3 straight wins at Turfway. Obviously, this is a synthetic to dirt angle. This would have been a much better angle about 8 years ago, Joe. But I do think there's some dirt pedigree here on this horse. And I don't think Bill Morey puts the horse in this spot if he doesn't think he has a chance. Bill Morey usually very wise in spotting the horses and fighting the owner sometimes to spot correctly. So I'm including Hush of the Storm as well. I'm 5 deep. It's a $25 play for me, 5 by 1 by 2 by 5. Andrew, bring a little sanity to the party.
Initially I was mulling over doing what you did as far as leaving Essential Quality off the ticket for a lot of the same reasons. He doesn't have to win. Having said that, my structure is such that, okay, if we're able to get a horse like Just Might home in the first leg, if we're able to beat Malathat in the second leg, if I'm able to get Monday Call home in the third leg, if Essential Quality wins, the pick 4 is still going to pay something. So I needed to have Essential Quality on the ticket. If you're doing a grid structure of any sort, maybe you put Essential Quality as a B in an attempt to make a little bit of money. What do you think, Elliot? You think that's smart? Okay, good. Anyway, I went 4 deep in here, and I used Untreated as well. That was a very impressive win last time out. Not entirely sure what he beat. You mentioned Nyquist. The Dam was a runner too. Fully Living had a lot of talent. Highly Motivated had a very adventurous trip in the Grade 3 Gotham. Do yourself a favor. Look up the chart of that race on March 6th. The NYRA chart callers for Equibase are some of the best and most creative in the business. Look at how they were able to work everything into one 6-line sentence as far as all of the trouble that Highly Motivated had. It is tremendous literature. It is definitely worth your time. And in this instance, I think Highly Motivated is at least worth using. Now, the other horse that I'm going to throw in is a horse that I've gone on record as saying I think wins the Belmont, and that's number 5, Rombauer. Rombauer came apparently flying last time out to win the El Camino Real Derby at Golden Gate Fields. That was a very painful stretch run for my co-host, J.D. Fox, who loved the filly that Rombauer wound up running down. What stood out to me, though, was the fact that I don't necessarily think Rombauer was speeding up. I think he kept the same speed pretty much the entire race and acted as a grind them down sort of runner. There are a lot of horses in here stretching out from 1 1/16 to 1 1/8. That might not sound like a whole heck of a lot, but I think the fact that Rombauer has a win at the distance is very, very interesting. I'm going 2, 3, 4, 5 in here to finish off a $32 ticket. And if we get Simply Ravishing home, I really, really like our chances at a pretty nice score on Saturday at Keeneland.
It's not just a horse, a filly that I liked, Andrew. Javanica, and I am shocked by this because this is recent news. Early, we're taping on Thursday night. We went pretty much the whole day without knowing the morning line odds for Saturday at Santa Anita. Javanica, the 3rd choice in the Santa Anita Oaks. I am blown away by that, 5-2. I thought this horse was going to be the favorite. I think this horse obviously still will be the favorite. Just surprised to see the 5-2 morning odds. Now that I have completely derailed the show, Joe, get us back on track. Close out your ticket for us.
So I am the haiku handicapper. So of course I came into this with a haiku. I hope you'll indulge me.
Yes.
The champ's still the champ. Essential quality scores. Next stop, Louisville. You guys have been mentioning that Essential Quality doesn't have to win this race. Yes, he does. I've done the math on this. Going back to since the Kentucky Derby point system has been implemented, the horse that finished first, not necessarily won because Maximum Security and Country House blew all of that up, the horse that crossed the wire first has always won his last prep. You can't back into the Kentucky Derby anymore. You have to have that. And how many horses have we given that excuse? Oh, he didn't need to win this one. He can run second. He can run a good third. Just get him healthy and get him there. And they show up and they do nothing. Momentum is everything, and he has all the momentum right now. You cannot afford to lose that. So Essential Quality is super duper on my ticket. If I were a braver man, I would have singled him, but I'm not. I am a coward. So here are the other horses that I'm putting on my ticket. I'm also putting on number 3, Highly Motivated. I think it's a very talented horse. That's my coworker with the Paulick Report. Chelsea Hackbarth has been on this horse for most of the spring. Ran a decent third in the Gotham. I think stands to improve there. The Beyer speed figures are among the best in this field. I'm a big believer in the Beyers, very comparable to what Essential Quality has been putting out. I think that's your most likely challenger. I've also got my eye on the 7, Hush of a Storm, as JD mentioned earlier. It's a little bit of old habits die hard, because one of my favorite angles back in the day was horse that ran on Tapeta running on the poly track at Keeneland. Obviously, they ripped up that surface a long time ago, but dig this. So Hush of the Storm ran really well at Turfway Park on the Tapeta. We don't know if that'll translate to the dirt, right? Well, on March 29th, Hush of the Storm fired a bullet work at Keeneland, going 5 furlongs and 59.4. The horse can run on dirt. I'm not concerned. I think this horse is a winner. I don't know if he's necessarily a winner against Essential Quality, but if for some reason, the planets align and Essential Quality gets stuck on the rail or something, Hush of the Storm would make me a lot of money. I'd be very happy if he hit that.
Your wife would be very happy too, I'm sure, and I'm sure you'd be able to take her out to a nice dinner of, her choosing, of course. So
Blueberry needs a new saddle. We all know where that money is going.
I just wanted to give you at least some sort of the illusion that you would be enjoying the fruits of your hard-earned labor. I'm trying to do what I can for you here. Now, having said that, we've got 3 different late pick 4 tickets at Keeneland. It's a grade 11 race card, fantastic card top to bottom, a lot of stakes races, not just in that late pick 4 sequence before that one starts as well. So however you want to get involved, get involved. It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of good cards elsewhere in the country too. Santa Anita and Aqueduct both have Kentucky Derby prep races as well. So JD, you have something on there called Obligatory Wrestling Talk. Now, this is something that we had on last week's show as well. Now, I'm going to kick this off a little bit here, because one of our favorite horses in training wound up running on Thursday at Aqueduct. And in addition to being one of our favorite horses because of his name, I actually liked him a little bit. The horse's name is Oh You Didn't Know. Yes, wrestling fans out there will immediately think, you better call somebody. Well,
and Rachel McLaughlin.
Yes. Shout out to Rachel McLaughlin.
Yes, and Pete Aiello, who said that my entire life was an attention-seeking stunt. He was right. Having said that, Oh You Didn't Know wind up running 4th. There will be a next time for that horse, and I will be keeping a close eye on it. That horse is in my stable mail, so get excited for me to hype up that horse whenever that horse happens to run.
Oh, boy. So, yeah, if we're going to do obligatory wrestling talk, it's the first week of April. WrestleMania season's right around the corner. Any matches you guys are excited about?
You know what I'm really excited about? Because they have given me so many reasons to be excited about.
What's that?
Randy Orton versus The Fiend. I really care about that one. What the hell?
See, I know you're being sarcastic. I actually enjoy the Fiend angle. I think that's one of the most carefully planned out things that WWE has done in a very long time, and they're not good at that. So to see something that they've actually taken care of and given room to breathe, and I think Alexa Bliss is one of the better legitimate actors on the roster right now. I think she's been fantastic in her role. I think they've done a really good job with this. And if it ends with a Firefly Funhouse match at Mania that sort of does to Orton what they did to Cena last year, where it's just a huge send up of the character for the last 2 decades, that's great. Sign me up.
See, the match that I'm actually really looking forward to is the triple threat between Daniel Bryan, Edge, and the one and only Roman Reigns. That's going to tear the house down. I'm really looking forward to that one. That's going to be a lot of fun. The booking seemed a little shoehorned. They sort of put Bryan in there late, and maybe that's to bring back memories of WrestleMania 30 when they did something sort of similar to that. But match-wise from bell to bell, that's going to be absolutely outstanding. JD, your thoughts?
I have not made the transition from WWE Network to Peacock. I let my subscription run out, and it ran out on different days for whoever you were, and so on and so forth. I've just heard nightmares. We'll see. I haven't been big into the Fed, into WWE in a while. I've been pretty much an AEW person, but one guy I've been a big fan of on the indies that's now getting a shot in ROH. If you guys aren't familiar with Danhausen, you need to do some YouTube searching on Danhausen. He has figured out how to break professional wrestling in the most obvious way. So he brings two things with him. If you're unfamiliar, Andrew, to the ring, are you familiar at all with Danhausen?
Not at all whatsoever.
He brings a bag of money to the ring with him.
Okay,
which is very important.
Yep.
And he also brings a bottle of teeth, because it is not illegal to put teeth in your opponent's mouth because they're teeth and everybody has them. Therefore, there's no wrestling rule book that says that you can't use teeth as a weapon because everybody has teeth. Try to defend that.
Mike Tyson.
Can't. Yeah, that's more biting. That has, I mean,
but it's using teeth as a weapon.
I mean, it's just we're getting into the minutia of professional wrestling rules here, guys. It's all fluid. Now, there's one more match on the WrestleMania card that I want to talk about, mostly because this should feel better and it doesn't. We're finally getting Sami Zayn versus Kevin Owens in WrestleMania, and I couldn't be less excited about it. And that just kills me. That should be the absolute fireworks factory. If this happened 4 years ago when those two were still in a blood feud together, that could be your main event. And right now, Sami Zayn's doing fantastic heel work. He's doing really good. Kevin Owens, I mean, I obviously I don't watch as much SmackDown as I probably should, but I just haven't been excited about him in a while. This feels like they're too late pulling the trigger on this. They're going to put on a good match because those two are destined to do this forever. But I wish I was more hype about that.
First of all, Kevin Owens is an absolute stand-up guy.
Yes.
When they did Elimination Chamber, afterwards he did a video where he thanked everybody that put the Elimination Chamber together and, did all of the legwork behind the scenes that nobody sees. That's freaking awesome. And by all accounts, he is an absolute stand-up dude. Now, this match is going to be great. And that's the reason I have absolutely no problem with it. I just wish the buildup was a little less rushed, but that's, we get what we get right now. They did just announce that the armbar, the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, will actually take place on Friday as opposed to being part of WrestleMania. Not overly crazy about that unless it leads to the trophy being used as a weapon, during WrestleMania. So we'll see. Maybe R-Truth wins that and has to haul both the trophy and the 24/7 title around, and we get some hijinks and shenanigans for that. I don't know.
Yeah, just make R-Truth's gimmick just like carrying everything on his back at all times.
Yeah, Elliot is very unhappy about the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal being moved. He woke right up and just threw both of his arms out and was just like, no, I don't want this. No.
Well, I think that's a good transition to final thoughts. And because Elliot is awake, Elliot, the floor is yours.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Elliot, and I have very good news. My human being, as of, in a little bit, will have a job.
Woo!
Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, I can't really go into too much depth on it right now because they are still sending me over some stuff that I need to sign, and it is not necessarily official yet, but there have been a lot of really cool developments. You can follow me on social media for those, and I just want to say thank you to everybody that provided some support, to everybody that allowed me to freelance a little bit during a pretty uncertain time that will allow me to put some food on this little one's plate. Yes. See, look out there. Say thank you to everybody. Say thank you. He's thinking it. Trust me.
I can feel it through the computer.
Good. I appreciate that. But seriously, to those of you that reached out and provided support, thank you. It means more to me than I could ever possibly express. Really, really appreciate it. And JD, this is the second straight week in a row where I'm ending my part of the show with good news.
Yeah, I mean, that's a record.
Yes.
That's a streak.
Yes, no. If we win one tomorrow, it's called a winning streak. It has happened before.
All right, Joe, where can people find you? Obviously, you're a Twitter account guy, so we should probably explain that. Not everybody may be following Michigan Bread Claimer, MI Bread Claimer on Twitter, but they should be. That was where I was getting to, Andrew. Thank you.
Yes, so I have multiple Twitter accounts. The MI Bread Claimer account that you see to my bottom right or bottom left, I can't tell which direction I am on the screen here. This one is mostly for my non-racing thoughts. This is for, if you enjoyed our conversation about professional wrestling, you'll see a lot more of that. Just things that aren't for the horse racing fans. Because I used to have all of my thoughts on one, and people would yell at me like, I follow you for horse racing, I don't follow you for wrestling, and you should stick to racing. So I got a different account. If you want to follow my racing thoughts, and I have plenty of those, Joe_Nevills on Twitter, at Joe_Nevills. Another thing that I want to plug while I have the very generous time, this past week we released a new Bloodstock newsletter called the PR Back Ring. This is something that is very mobile friendly. For the last year or so, obviously COVID-19 has made things difficult to hand out paper newsletters on the sale grounds. So we had to come up with something different to, reach people interested in Bloodstock, reach advertisers, and get everyone to look at the product, because PDFs just aren't a whole lot of fun to read on a phone. So basically for the last 3 months, since January, so now we're up to 4 months, that's been my entire full-time job, is like getting the back ring to a position where we can debut it at the Fasig-Tipton Gulfstream sale. We got fantastic support from advertisers. I really appreciate everyone who supported that, both from reading and for advertising. We're going to be back for OBS April. We're going to be back for every major North American sale going forward. Please read, please advertise. That would mean so much to me. Thank you so much.
And if people want to advertise, where can they go?
Email me at joe@paulickreport.com or DM me at any social media account where you can find me, and I will get back to you and we will talk business.
Sounds great. JD, your thoughts?
Bourbonic has a chance to win the Wood Memorial at 30-1. Check out the pedigree. Look at the races. I'm telling you, that horse has ability and has... Obviously, when we talk about England, there is such a thing as a royal pedigree, because you can actually be a queen's horse and have a royal lineage. This is a horse that comes from as long a line of North American royalty as humanly possible. Just the breeding, if you guys are getting into pedigree at all, check out the pedigree on Bourbonic. It is a fun read, and you will learn a lot about North American racing just looking back at this horse's pedigree.
Elliot's eyes got really big.
A living history lesson. Gotta love it.
For whatever that's worth, Elliot's eyes got really, really big. But remember, Wood Memorial at Aqueduct, Santa Anita Derby at, of course, Santa Anita, and a big day of racing on Saturday at Keeneland with a lot of graded stakes races and a lot of very, very good horses set to go postward. Really fun day of racing, huh, Elliot? Really fun show. Fun show, right? Yes. Don't worry. We're almost done. And then you can go back to, being cute somewhere else. Anyway, for Joe Nevills, for Natalie Voss, for my co-host JD Fox, I'm Andrew Champagne alongside Elliot Champagne. Do we want to let Elliot do the catchphrase this week, or is that too over the top? You know what? I think we're already, going over there. I think we're okay. Stay off the beaches, everybody. Now leave me alone. See y'all.